So I was meant to record this a few days ago and I didn't. I hope you forgive me for being a bit late. My dad died on Tuesday night, so it's kind of been a nice stressful little time. Thankfully I'm not kind of in that negative place I was in a few years ago, which resulted in the story that I actually messaged Just Incredible a few weeks ago. So without wrestling I wouldn't be here, and that's it sounds like such a strange thing to say, because wrestling's meant to be fake, it's not real, but it's the reason I'm here. WrestleMania 31 was a night where I tried to kill myself, and it wasn't a spur of the moment decision. It was well thought out. I'd spent quite a long time trying to do it. I'd spent 3-4 weeks not eating, drinking just enough to make sure I didn't pass out, and anybody who's ever been there will tell you that it's painful, it's not very pleasant, if you can get what I'm alluding to. The night of WrestleMania 31 was the first of many really strange coincidences, and it's kind of this almost serendipitous story that I always kind of come back to whenever I feel bad, and I feel like I'm kind of meant to be here rather than meant to leave. And whenever I tell the story, people always think, well, it can't be true, but it absolutely is. So the night of WrestleMania 31, I sat with beanie hat, very similar to this one, and I was emptying up tablets and capsules, mainly capsules, because you can't hold down tablets when you try and overdose. The problem was that my friend came round. He knew it was WrestleMania 31 and he wanted to spend a couple hours with me. I thought I'd been able to convince him everything was okay. This hat full of tablets was sat next to him on the floor next to the couch, and I thought, well, that's good, he didn't notice, so he's not going to stop me. Because I knew if I told him, he would stop me. So about half an hour after he left, there's a knock on the door, but it's 1 in the morning UK time here. I'm thinking, there's no way I'm answering the door, so I just leave it. And then somebody shouts to the letterbox, Martin, it's the police, open the door or we will kick it in. And you can imagine that holy shit moment of, well, wait a second, I don't want them kicking my door in, something that's also happened before, so I'll go and let them in. So I let them in, they do the normal, they have a look around, make sure there's nobody else here that I haven't told them about, make sure there's nothing I can do any harm to myself with. And the thing is, the police are never going to look inside a beanie hat, they just never assume it. The police were here until about 5 minutes before the end of WrestleMania. They had to wait for their boss to tell them that everything was okay for them to leave and there was no concerns for my safety. I'm spending that long, putting that much effort into fooling them. As crazy as it sounds, I was just tired. When they left, I watched the last 5 minutes of WrestleMania and I went to sleep. I got up the next day and for some reason the thought wasn't there. I just moved on. But the interesting part of the night before was the police were here to protect me, and they'd spent their time looking at wrestling belts, they'd spent their time looking at my collection of DVDs, and whilst we're talking about wrestling belts, this, at the time, was my only wrestling belt, and it was sat on the shelf unit behind me, and the two policemen that were here proceeded to take pictures of themselves with that belt. Which is kind of interesting if they're here to protect me because they think that something's going on. But I spent the next couple of weeks feeling like I was only here because wrestling had brought my friend here, and by bringing him here, that meant that there was a reason for the police to come, and that's why I didn't do it. A couple of weeks go by, I'm still not eating, not drinking very much, and I'm still feeling quite low, and I try it again. By this time there's nobody here, and there's no wrestling show to save me. the problem is that there was a wrestling show to save me, because my other friend decided to message me when he saw me online about 1 or 2 in the morning, and he messaged me whilst I was drinking a 2-litre bottle of the most vile tasting concoction you can imagine, which was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of drug capsules. Opened up, poured it into the bottle, pour some diluting juice in, mix it up, and then drank it. But I was using that to down sleeping tablets as well, because there was about a month's worth of sleeping tablets that I had. I was on daily dispense because I was a risk, so I wasn't allowed to get more than a day's worth of sleeping tablets. I had to go and get them every day to help me sleep. But the chemist messed up, and when the chemist messed up that day, I just looked at it like, well, you know what, here's a sign. Not only am I thinking about doing it, but they've just handed me a month's worth of sleeping tablets I'm not supposed to have. It's a sign. But 2 in the morning, my friend, who isn't a massive wrestling fan, but I did previously challenge him to come to a wrestling show, and I said, if you don't enjoy it, I'll pay for your ticket. If you enjoy it, then you pay me back. And at the end of the show, he handed me the money and he said, you know what, I'm not the biggest wrestling fan, but I enjoyed that. So anyway, a couple of weeks after WrestleMania, my friend Keith messages me to talk about a local show here in Aberdeen, and he picks the exact moment that I am drinking this concoction and taking these sleeping tablets. And both times where I've been in that position, it's wrestling that has brought people somehow to kind of save me. And I'm not a heavily religious person, but I believe in karma, I believe in signs, I believe that there are things that happen that make no sense. And he was talking very flowery, he was saying some of those things that you really don't want to hear when you're depressed. I had so much to live for, etc. And I snapped at him. And what I snapped was, you really have no idea what I'm doing. And just from that sentence, he knew, and he called the police. And I'm sat in the hospital a couple of hours later, and it's about 6 in the morning, and there's a changeover of police officers at roughly this time. And as I'm sitting there, the police are sitting outside the little cubicle that I'm in, and I can see the police officers changing, and they're exchanging notes, and I can only really see the backs of heads and stuff. And then a nurse comes and closes the curtain. So about 5 minutes later, they have to come in and take more bloods. And what I see is one of the policemen that were here the first time. And he looks at his colleague, who's a different colleague to the last time I saw him. He was the guy from the night of WrestleMania 31. He turns to his friend and he says, you know, I know this guy. Last month I sat in his house. You should see his wrestling collection. It's really bloody cool. And what's funny is, this is what he was talking about. It was this belt. I mean, I have 27 belts now, including minis, including customs, and I don't want to kill myself anymore. I feel that way sometimes, but I'm in this really cool position of wrestling saved my life a couple of times, whether it believes it or not, or whether it actually was wrestling, or it's just that timing thing that happens where wrestling was the thing behind everything. That to me means that I'm meant to be here, and that's cool. I like that. As a wrestling fan, everybody is criticising the product and it's not good, but it's the only reason I'm here. I mean, I have an 18-month-old son, and he has a custom wrestling belt, he has wrestling toys. I have wrestling all around me because it's the one thing that brings me joy, whether it's good wrestling, bad wrestling, whether it's heroes like Bret Hart, whether it's companies like AEW, and I didn't enjoy all of that show, but it was something, it was exciting, and I go to bed every night, and I'm an insomniac, I don't sleep. So every night, my company, when my wife and my child go to sleep, is the WWE Network. Or it's shoot interviews from RF Video, or it's kayfabe commentaries videos. Largely Jim Cornette, because I love a good rant, and I like hearing people passionate about the thing that I'm passionate about. I even do a wrestling radio show for Aberdeen University radio station, Aberdeen Student Radio. Without wrestling, I wouldn't be here. So the question, which is, what does wrestling mean to you? As dramatic as it sounds, wrestling means life or death. And that would make my dad, who just died, absolutely crazy at me. Because he would say it's fake, it doesn't matter. But the problem is, it does. And I know I'm not the only one. There are other people out there who, they wake up in the morning and all they speak about is wrestling, and they never make a single penny in it. They don't make any money from it. But it's part of who they are. And that's what wrestling is to me. Much to the chagrin of many of my girlfriends over the years, much to the delight of my wife, who at least knows she's went to work today. She knows I'm off work because my dad's died, and my son is at my mum's, so I've got a little bit of time to myself. I've just written something that's going to be read at his funeral. Unfortunately, he's on the other side of the world. He's in Australia, I'm in Scotland. So I can't be at his funeral. Mainly because I can't be trusted to have a passport. So by the time I got a passport, I couldn't be there. The problem is I used to go missing all the time. And my wife knows that as long as I'm messaging her every now and again, it's going to be fine. Wrestling will be my distraction today. I will stick wrestling on after I finish filming this, and I will sit and watch something. I haven't even decided what it'll be, but I know that's what's going to help me get through those couple of hours when I'm on my own. Wrestling is life and death, and that probably sounds a bit too dramatic, but hopefully from my story, wrestling is the one thing that's always been there. The thing I wrote for my dad's funeral, which one of his friends is going to read out for me, is interesting because even that has something about wrestling in it. I mean, one of my favourite memories was dragging a bag of 100 wrestling figures through to where he stayed and playing with them on this rug he had in the living room. And it's crazy because it's such an unimportant memory, but it's important, and wrestling did that for me.